Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel for the first time ever. My name is Kate, but you guys can call me Kit Kat. I'm brand new to doll customizing, and this is the second doll I've ever made. I posted my first doll, a mini-me, on Instagram, but I wanted to be able to connect with the doll community better, so I decided to film my doll customizations so I could show you guys the whole process. In this video, I'll be making Marinette from the show Miraculous Ladybug. It's a cute cartoon about a couple of Parisian superheroes who fight crime with the help of some magical creatures called Kwami. By season 3, they've gained 3 new teammates, and I thought it would be fun to make all 5 of the major characters into dolls. Naturally, I had to start with the main heroine, Ladybug. One thing that's bugged me for a while is the design of Ladybug's superhero outfit. All of the other characters' costumes are way more detailed and visually interesting, but Ladybug looks like she's running around in a pair of footy pajamas. So when I was making the doll, I decided I wanted to alter her design a little. I put up this poll on Instagram to ask which design my followers liked most. I think most people liked outfit number 3 best, but I didn't want to stray that far from her original design, so I ended up picking number 1. It's a little different, but similar enough to still be recognizable as Ladybug. Now that all that's decided, let's begin. I picked this reboot Draculaura doll from, I think, the Shriekwrecked collection. I really prefer the proportions of the newer bodies, and her smile is perfect for Marinette's face. I start by cutting off all her hair. You want to use some precise scissors and cut really close to the scalp. This will make it a lot easier to pull all the hair out later. Next, I take some hot water and dunk her in head first to soak for a minute. Using heat makes the vinyl more flexible, so you can pull off her head without damaging the neck peg. Once her head is off, I take some pliers and go in through the neck hole. I'm scraping off the glue and the hair plugs on the inside of the head. Unfortunately, I lost some footage from this project, and part of it was me pulling out the hair from the inside of the head, so you'll just have to imagine that part. Here I'm cutting off these barbs from the neck peg because they don't actually do anything aside from make the head harder to get off. And if I need to pull the head off again in the future, I want to be able to do so easily to avoid damaging the face up. Now for my favorite part, which is wiping off the face and making the doll a clean slate. I use 100% acetone, which is the main ingredient in nail polish remover. It takes off the factory paint really quickly and effectively, but I make sure to rinse it off afterwards, just using some soap and water. I'm using an X-Acto knife to cut off these buttons that are sculpted onto the arms, and then also to cut off the rope things on the hands. Then I sand down the whole arm with just some coarse sandpaper. After that, I also carve off the sculpted details of the underwear and sand down the rest of the body to prepare it for painting. I use coarse sandpaper to rough up the surface, and then a fine sandpaper to smooth it back out. When you're done sanding the body, the surface shouldn't have any more shiny parts, but it should feel smooth to the touch. Now it's time to paint on her costume. At first I tried adding Mod Podge to the paint in hopes that it would be more durable, but all it really does is make the paint more rubbery, so it peels off in large chunks instead of just chipping. So after that I just switched to using water and acrylic paint mixed together. You can see I'm avoiding some of the spots where her joints touch, and that's because I know the paint will just chip off of those areas. So I'm going to be trying a different method to change the color of those spots later. I continue adding thin layers of paint until the color is completely opaque. Now it's time to start working with clay. I'm using Apoxie Sculpt to cover up her toes and give her kind of a shoe-like shape to her foot. And I know I'm supposed to be wearing gloves for this, and I did try at first, but I just can't sculpt with gloves on. It was such a mess. I didn't have any kind of reaction to the epoxy aside from it drying out my hands a little, so, you know, live on the edge. I used some of the leftover epoxy to make her yo-yo and other accessories for the dolls. I was working on the Rena Rouge and Queen Bee dolls at the same time, so that's why they're also, you know, being worked on. And this is where I ran into a bit of a problem. I started blushing the joints with pastels, but I was still having a lot of issues with chipping. So what I did was take an X-Acto knife and carve away the extra plastic from the joints so that they don't rub up against each other anymore. So you can see here that the ball of the shoulder is able to rotate without scraping up against the torso at all. And I did get a little carried away on Ladybug, but it's actually a really useful method for keeping the paint from chipping at the joints. And now I can go back to putting pastels on the joints. I was having trouble building up opacity, so one method I kind of tried was just drawing directly onto the joints with pastels, and it actually worked pretty well to build up the color faster. So I just continue doing this until I can't take it anymore. I'm also using this opportunity to test out these pan pastels, and holy crap, this color payoff is so much nicer than my other pastels. But unfortunately I only have a few colors of pan pastels because I can't exactly afford an entire rainbow of them. And despite all my efforts, I'm still having issues with the joints chipping. So I just gave up and started covering up any mistakes with Sharpie. Then I move on to painting the rest of her suit and finishing up all the details, trying real hard to get really crisp, clean lines around the edges. And then I thought, you know, if I do the rest of the spots with paint, it's just going to take forever. So I decided to use Sharpies again because it's just so much easier to get a circle with a, you know, circular tipped pen. And this way I didn't have to do multiple layers to get it to be opaque. I'm using this monster maker as sort of a mannequin because it's perfect for using as a stand-in body. It doesn't have a neck peg, so you can easily swap out its head for any doll you're working on. I put a couple layers of plastic wrap over her head to protect it while I'm making her wig. Then I mark off where her bangs and pigtails will split. I really love this particular brand of yarn. It's loosely wound so you don't have to brush it out at all. Simply unravel it and you basically have ready-made doll hair. Now I begin this really messy process of gluing chunks of hair to her head until her bangs are complete. Sadly, I also lost the footage where I made her pigtails, as well as the part where I cut her hair later on, so sorry. I used Sharpies to color her hair blue, I could have gone with a blue yarn, but I actually prefer her hair to be a lot darker than it appears in the show, because the creator of the show, Thomas Astrup, originally intended for her hair to be black with blue highlights. He wanted the show to pay homage to classic comic book styles. And I like that the original concept art for Marinette made her look a lot more Chinese than she does in the show now. When I finish cutting the hair, I use a combination of water and Mod Podge to style it. When it dries, it'll harden the hair into place, like a gel or a heavy-duty hairspray. And yes, the Sharpie did get everywhere and stain everything blue, so I probably have to think of a better way to color hair in the future. Now the real heartbreak. I lost almost all of the face-up footage. It's not the end of the world, but I'm so frustrated I can't show you guys the beginning of this part. I feel like the face-up is the most important part of customizing. At least you guys can still watch the last part of the face-up. I used some dark pastels to add some shading above her eyes. And then I add some highlights to the creases of her eyes using a white pencil. I use a kneaded eraser to clean up the edges and make everything neat. Then I very carefully take a dotting tool and some white acrylic paint to give her some highlights in her eyes. To complete the face-up, I take some high gloss varnish and use it to make her eyes and lips shiny. This adds a touch of realism to her face and pulls it all together. I attach her earrings to her head using some hot glue. Then I take some Elmer's glue all to glue the wig back onto her head permanently. I use some elastics to hold it in place while it dries, and then the doll is finished. I'll be posting the videos for Queen Bee and Rena Rouge soon. Noir and Carapace are being put on hold because I'm working on a different project right now, but I'll get around to them too. Thanks for watching and subscribe to see more doll videos in the future.